Hello and welcome back to People and Politics, which comes to you from Cardiff. We're a studio audience. We're discussing the Liberal-Labour government alliance of last week and also the question of devolution. In fact, just before the break, I said that in the second half of the programme we would apply our minds to the question of devolution. But just before we do go there, I'm hopefully going to pursue the question that we were asking in the first half and the point that was raised, I think, very eloquently by Mr. Roberts on the platform and also by David Williams, that perhaps some realignment and some breaking up of the parliamentary system as we know it and the Westminster system as we know it may in fact have been initiated last week. And so it is to that question that I will in fact invite some speakers at this stage, and I'll start with Mr. Terry Thomas, who is a Liberal. Mr. Thomas.
Well, you raised the question quite properly, I think, in the context of how long this particular arrangement is going to last. And it would seem to me that this arrangement will last as long as the Liberal Party feels that by sustaining it, we are giving stability to the country. If a time comes when that stability is being threatened by any means, then we are in a position to say, right, the deal is now off, and we go to a general election. However, in the wider context then, this arrangement obviously has implications which possibly none of us can see at this stage. But there are political commentators, there are people in the Liberal Party who do see it as the culmination of quite a campaign by us to alter the face of British politics, to try to bring about realignments in the centre and to the left of centre. And there are people who prefer not to vote for the Labour Party because it tends to be dominated in many of its aspects by left-wing socialism. And there are people who do not wish to vote for the Conservatives because the tendency there is for the right-wing to dominate. And so we are in a position, it seems to me, moving. Wider and wider segments of society are looking for a party which will use, as it were, as its cutting edge, its power, small power admittedly, but not all that small when you consider the number of voters we have, in order to bring about a realignment. Now, I think there's a resilience in parties as they stand which will work against them breaking up. It's not an age for parties to dissolve and to reform. And therefore, it may be that we are in for a period when a party like the Liberal Party is the only answer to a situation which people would like to see changed fundamentally, but haven't the courage or the vision to do it.
Do you genuinely believe you can tame the tiger?
If the voter will allow us, yes, we can.
Okay. Len Jones, the Labour Party. Let me hear from you.
Well, Mr. Gardner, I think, you know, some of the people here are kidding us, especially the Conservatives and our Plaid Cymru friends, when they talk about us on a slippery slope. What we are suffering from at the moment is trying to push socialist policies through in a capitalist society. And I would sincerely hope that when we go to the country next time, that we will have a sufficient majority that we can put real socialist policies about.
You don't see this as a long-lasting deal, Mr. Jones?
Well, I hope not. And if I was in Jim Callaghan's place, I would certainly take the gamble and go to the country and with a big majority give us the policies that the 11 million trade union workers want.
Mr. Dixon at the back, who replied.
Yeah, I would agree there's being a realignment in British politics at the moment, but it's got nothing to do with the events of last week. All the events of last week do is alter the faces who pull the levers up in London. The real debate in politics today is between those who believe that the power should be exercised centrally in London and those who believe that the people should have a share in power. The realignment that's coming about in British politics is due to the growth of the Welsh and Scottish nationalist parties. The changing around in faces in London makes no difference at all to us.
Okay, this brings us happily and logically to devolution, doesn't it? I did promise Jennifer Lloyd that she would speak in the first half of the programme, and then I omitted and broke my promise. I better bring you in.
Thank you very much. I would like to put one point forward which has struck me very forcibly and which I think is a different thing which has appeared over the past 7 days, and that has been the interest of the public, the general feeling. People who've spoken to me who have previously really had no way or even no desire to speak in terms of party politics have felt and have stated, now we feel there are possibilities opening before us. And I think it behoves all of us who are in the political field to, as it were, try to interpret this and sense it and work upon it. And this gives us an opening.
Sorry, Ms. Lloyd. Mr. Cavill next to you.
I find myself in considerable agreement with Mrs. Lloyd in that...
Of the CBI, I think. Am I right,
yes.
Mr. Cavill? Yes.
What I think that the majority of the electorate in this country want is a stable government. I think that what has happened has been a tactical move. There's been talk of principles. I believe it's purely tactical, as most of the moves at Westminster are. But I do believe the majority of the people in this country and business wants a stable government. And the reason for the dive in the share prices because of the thought of instability. I believe that there would have been another minority government had there been a general election.
Thank you very much. I think there are hands going up all over the place, and I know you all want to take up these points, but I think I must move on and talk specifically at this stage about devolution, and I think I'll start with Barry Jones on that. Barry Jones in the front row.
Well, one of the interesting things to emerge from the arrangement between the Liberal and the Labour Party is, of course, that it re-establishes the devolution policy as a viable policy in this Parliament, which, after the vote on the guillotine, seemed not to be the case. And the interesting thing is what it will do, how the devolution issue will emerge in Wales now. It emerges in Wales, if it does emerge in Wales, as a result of this arrangement, and I realise there are possibilities that it might be ditched and Scotland will go ahead alone, but if it does emerge in Wales on this basis, it will be on the basis of a declining Liberal vote, of an increasing nationalist vote, and the Labour vote under threat from the Conservatives. And it will emerge in a situation which is quite different from that of Scotland, and a situation which many people in England have little knowledge of, I think. I have a strong suspicion, a thesis of mine, that there are more devolutionists in Wales than there are in Scotland. But what there are in Scotland, there are more nationalists in Scotland, and there are more people scared of nationalism in Scotland, and devolution seems a useful way out. But quite clearly, although there might be more devolutionists in Wales, they aren't a majority. Although, curiously enough, back in 68, 69, when there were public opinion polls, there was a very large majority in Wales for devolution. And I think what's happened since then to change that situation so that only about a third of the Welsh people are now in favour of devolution is, first of all, the emergence of Scottish nationalism and the fear that devolution will lead to separatism. Secondly, the particular problem which Wales faces, that many of its Welsh MPs are in the government and have departmental commitments, and I think there's been a weakness on the part of the Labour government to present the devolution case in Wales. Thirdly, the division in the Labour Party in Wales on this issue, and the Labour Party occupies such a dominant position in Wales that if it is divided, then the whole nation to a large extent is divided. And fourthly and finally, the emergence of an issue which is quite unique to Wales and distorts the whole devolution debate, and that is the question of language, which cuts right across party lines and creates all kinds of complexities. Now, it's an open question as to whether these complexities can be resolved into some kind of coherent policy as a result of the arrangement that has now been made. But that strikes me now as a possibility.
Thank you very much indeed. I think I better hear from somebody from Plaid. Gentleman up at the back who I'm rather ignoring the back. Mr. Palfrey, is it, at the back there from Plaid?
Yes, I think we've been talking earlier, Mr. Chairman, about this pact and the alliance. We're now talking about devolution. And we in the Welsh Nationalist Party, I think, would be far more convinced about the Labour and Liberal performance in Westminster recently had it not been for the fact that this particular government has been one all along of compromise and hypocrisy. Because we talk about bedfellows, and the first half of the programme is becoming very uneasy because for once in my life I've found myself almost a bedfellow with the Tories in Wales, and this is just not on. But I'll say this for the Tories, at least you know who your enemy is. Now, I don't know quite what the Labour and Liberal Party are or have been, because the Liberals in Parliament, despite all their pleas and all their hopes and optimisms about devolution in Wales, managed to help kill the devolution bill by messing about with the business of proportional representation and other minor details. Now, if they'd been really in favour of it, they would have helped the Labour government to get through their bill. And the Labour government...
Sorry, Mr. Palfrey, may I ask you, if devolution doesn't come back in the life of this Parliament, and if it does come back and they go simply for Scotland and Wales is ignored, when I was in Scotland, I mean, there were one or two quite level-headed people standing up in our audience there, saying that they feared a kind of Irish situation developing in Scotland if devolution was ignored and put to one side. Do you fear or suspect that something like that could happen in Wales?
Well, this is the... I assume they're talking about Northern Ireland, not
yes,
Southern Ireland.
Yes,
yeah.
It's not holidays in Cork.
Yeah. This is one of the cliché bits of propaganda that, that we in Plaid Cymru are used to hearing.
I wasn't accusing Plaid of anything. I was asking you for your views on a point of view that was advanced in Scotland, not necessarily by members of the SNP.
Yes, I think the headline that stands in my mind recent years was in the Daily Express saying violent England with picketing and strikes. And we in Wales have, in fact, to my way of thinking, perhaps a too pacifist approach to politics in many ways. But certainly we shall, you know, overcome, in the words of the song, through the vote and through convincing people that the only party which really believes in devolution, and has been all along, is Plaid Cymru.
Right, thank you very much. Geraint Taflan-Davies, your newspaper has published a number of polls and kept us informed on this matter. What do you believe the mood of the people in Wales to be on this subject?
Well, I think it is perfectly clear that from the result of the polls that we carried out about a week or so ago, that at the moment it seems that a majority of people would rather retain the status quo. But you were asking, you know, what would happen if a devolution bill did not get through in this Parliament. And I think what is perfectly clear from the poll is that devolution as an issue is not going to go away whatever happens. It seems to me that over the last year or two that the anti-devolution forces have certainly held the centre of the stage. Because of what Barry Jones was saying, Welsh MPs have tended to be in the government. You haven't had backbenchers arguing the case. And yet, despite this barrage of anti-devolution sentiment for the last year or two, you are still left in this opinion poll with a very solid third, over 30%, who are in fact in favour of something stronger than the proposals that the government has put forward. I see this group of 30% as really a hard core of devolutionists. They are not going to go away. The situation in Scotland, I think there is a greater chance of a Scottish Assembly. We are going to see direct elections to the European Parliament. We are seeing, I think, the beginning of the breakup of the two-party system in Britain. And all these factors, I think, are bound to influence the Welsh scene. They are bound to be interpreted in a Welsh context. And I think that devolution, whatever the polls may say now, devolution is going to be with us for a very, very long time yet.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to come to the platform because Mr. Roberts said there that he specifically wanted to answer that point. Mr. Roberts, quite quickly, if you can.
Yes, indeed. First of all, I agreed with practically everything Barry Jones said. But really, Mr. Taflan-Davies can't get away with the statement that the anti-devolutionists have held sway. This just isn't true. The one thing you could say about the anti-devolutionists in criticism is that they haven't campaigned vigorously enough. It is true. It is true that the pro-devolutionists haven't. That's the government's fault. The government minister should have been fighting the case. But to pretend that in Wales the anti-devolutionists have been putting the case, when in the vast majority of cases we've ignored it. And the Western Mail, the national daily of Wales, has plugged and plugged the theme of devolution and plugged it with no results, obviously, for months and months and months, for years.
I'm sorry, I must go back to Mr.
Very quickly, Mr. Davies.
You know, I work in newspapers day in, day out, and the fact of the matter is that you have had, say, in the Labour Party, and I accept that it is crucial to devolution in Wales that the Labour Party get its message through to its own supporters. And in the Labour Party in South Wales, the people who, during the last year or so, I accept that the devolutionists had a tremendous platform at the beginning of the 70s, late 60s and early 70s, but in the last year or so, I think there is no doubt at all that it is the anti-devolution Labour MPs who have captured most of the headlines.
Mrs. Lycett, do you have a verse for the devolutionists?
I am not against the devolution of powers from Westminster to some lower level, more locally based, but I am against this proposed elected Welsh Assembly, which would not have any fiscal powers, not even as much as the smallest parish council has, and would be sitting in Cardiff, would be no more relevant to the wishes of the people in Anglesey or in North Wales than Westminster.
All right, now I want to move away from the politicians just for a moment. I think we have invited two Welsh writers here. I think one ought to hear from them, Mr. Harry Webb and Mr. Fishlock. I'd like to hear from both of you. Mr. Webb, you write in Welsh, I think it's right in saying, and Mr. Jones in the front there talked about the confusion created by the Welsh language campaign in the midst of the devolution issue. Perhaps you'd like to talk about that for us.
As a writer, I would like to say that I think what we need in Wales is not a reform of government, but a reform of our imagination, a reform of our creative life, a releasing of the undoubted energies of the Welsh people on those lines.
Would that be done by devolution, or can it be done without it? Is it therefore more a language thing than it has to be a political thing?
I think the two things go together. I write in English as well as in Welsh, yes. And I believe that both languages are part of our national heritage. Both have got to be cherished, and both have got to enrich not only our own lives, but I hope those of the whole world. That is the sort of contribution that the Welsh people have got to make. They can't do that while they're being mucked about by the politicians at the moment.
Trevor Fishlock?
I agree with a lot of what Harry Webb has said, and also the, I think, lucid analysis of the circumstances in Wales by Barry Jones earlier on. I think it's important for people who are outside Wales to appreciate that Welsh nationalism is very different from Scottish nationalism. People ought not to compare them and draw exactly the same lessons. They're very different.
Can you explain the difference for us?
Yes, I think that essentially Welsh nationalism is more sophisticated and it's more cultured, and Scottish nationalism is more economic and therefore greedier. And I also think that Welsh nationalism is more sensible in the sense that Scottish nationalism is concerned with a coalition for independence, which is what the SNP is, and will fragment upon independence or whatever is close to it. But Welsh nationalism is entirely different, and I think is connected much more with growth and comes from deeper roots.
There are people with their hands up who have already spoken. I'm sorry, I really must favour those who haven't. Mr. Rossi, at the end there, a trade union point of view, would you like to give me?
Yeah, well, I'd like to comment, because I understand that this programme is being shown in England, and I think that we ought to give it a purely Welsh context this evening. The party political aspect of this, I think that the Tory party have always demonstrated in Wales that they're an anti-Welsh party. They've always been the Anglicising influence in Wales. As far as the Liberal Party is concerned, I'm dubious as to where the Liberal Party stand on devolution, particularly on the guillotine motion, as to whether the emphasis they place is not on devolution, but is on proportional representation. But might I make an appeal to Labour and trade union friends here, because we represent the mass movement of the people in Wales. That with the situation that we face now, it's up to us who put the issues of Wales first within our movement to try to steer our movement in Wales in favour of strengthening the Scotland and Wales Bill, and to ask that legislative competence be given to the Welsh Assembly on the same basis as Scotland.
No, I'm sorry, I really must. I've got 5 minutes. I really must favour those who haven't spoken. And I'm sure I'm going to miss pearls of wisdom by so doing, but I shall be hard on this matter and favour Mr. Lewis at the back there, who hasn't spoken.
I hope you won't miss the pearls of wisdom. But may I correct Mr. Brosser? The Liberal Party has for 40 years wanted devolution, and I don't like the word devolution. I would prefer to say transfer. It's the transfer of power to Cardiff, for the Welsh people to be able to make the decision in Cardiff, not in Whitehall. That is what we want, in Cardiff, not in London. And I would say to the Welshness of the people that this is one of the causes of our economic problems, is that too many decisions are made in London, and they could be made in Cardiff. And may I say this, since '56, there's been a transfer of power of various things to Cardiff, and it is only an acceleration of this. And I think that the Tories were very short-sighted when they killed this bill, and they didn't allow it to go on.
Mr. Winfred James hasn't spoken.
It was very interesting. One dimension of our concept as a nation, which has only been touched upon so far, is the Welsh language. And when this matter was raised, it was very interesting to hear everyone saying, yes, we are in favour of the survival of the language, and everybody was agreeing. But the problem is that all the political parties, that is the British political parties, will do nothing constructive. And let me clarify my point here. When it comes to a comprehensive language policy, none of the English parties has a policy of that kind. Recently, the Labour Party refused to include in a legislation a bilingual title for the Rural Development Board. And that is the sum total of their attitude to the Welsh language. And the Tory party is very similar and worse, and the Liberal Party very similar.
Okay. Hang on, Mr. Williams. Just before you do, I think I'm going to take the opportunity of saying a formal good night to people outside. We still have a couple of minutes left, so therefore I'm going to let people talk us through to the end of the programme. But I'll say good night to you outside, and hope you continue to watch us for the next few moments, Mr.
Surely
Williams.
what comes over here is that views are very deep-seated. For 10 years, devolution has been an issue in Wales. The important factor, and this is what the government's legislation is intended to give, is that for the first time the people of Wales would choose for themselves.
But will Wales
and there would be a referendum. There would be a referendum, and the people could choose for themselves whether they want devolution or not.
And we don't want any more, Di, so you keep quiet for a minute.
Mr. Williams, may I put a question to you? Is it not likely, though, in fact, that when the bill comes back, Wales will be out of it altogether?
Well, discussions are still taking place, as you know, between the parties in London.
Yes, discussions are taking place. The 28-page proposal put into compiled by David Steele this week and given to the Prime Minister makes two proposals. One, that the bill should be divided into two parts to deal with Scotland, then concentrates on Scotland. It does that because the proposals concerning Wales have yet to be delivered to the Labour government. And there will definitely be proposals for trying to succeed in taking the devolution bill, so far as Wales is concerned, through this session of Parliament.
Mr. Roberts, very quickly.
I have always opposed an assembly, and in the last Gallup poll, opinion poll, 54% of the people of Wales agreed with my point of view, and only 4% with the government, and only 10% wanted independence.
Mr. Williams, Mr. David Williams.
Vote for the referendum. Well, we'll allow the political parties in London to squabble, but the fact remains that in the recent deal, the Labour and Liberal parties have agreed to cut Wales out of the devolution bill. What I would like to tell people is this: there is only one real form of devolution which is worth struggling for.
Quiet.
And that is full self-government for Wales. And that is the only reason the growth of Plaid Cymru and the SNP...
Right, one from the audience, speaker from the audience. Gentleman, all right.
Today.
No, gentleman back there hasn't spoken. No, not you. Gentleman there.
I represent one of the rebel Labour constituencies. And all we are saying is this.
Quickly.
Everybody's umming and ahhing. Well, why don't you ask the Welsh people what they want then?
Thank you very much. Which rounds us up very nicely. Thank you.